So let's wrap it with not quite as much of a potential playoff preview, but hey, you never know. In the in the NFL, the Jets playing good defense. The Chargers have kind of been underachieving and have had a tough schedule. Yeah. So again, you never know. But Chargers, Jets are underdogs by 3. The total 41.5. Could see some rain yet again at MetLife Stadium. Chargers going cross country after a resounding victory over the Bears. At least they, finally they don't charge it, because I was a little worried. I didn't end up taking a side in that game, but I was just like, I knew the Chargers were probably the right side, but I wasn't gonna ever take them. And the Bears have been kind of frisky, but now this Jets team's kind of in that same boat, right? Come from behind win last week. Zach Wilson, somebody was like, shades of Aaron Rodgers. So it's a weird time to be a Jets fan, I guess. But in terms of luck rankings, both of these teams have been lucky, both in the top 12. The Jets 6th, the Chargers 12th. So no edge there, but who do you like in the captain spot?
I'm going with Garrett Wilson here. He's finally showing some chemistry with Zach Wilson. Back-to-back games of 7 or more receptions, 90 or more receiving yards. And the Chargers are a great matchup. They've allowed the most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, so that's kind of why I was higher on Zach Wilson this week, who's inside my top 20. So I just love the upside of the Wilson to Wilson stack here, with Garrett being my captain selection.
Yeah, and you would expect the Chargers to be able to build a lead here, though. Again, who knows? But that would obviously be good for the game script. And the Jets receiving core is low key a little bit decimated. I mean, you had Cobb was hurt, and then Gibson got hurt, and Irv Charles as well. So they were playing Malik Taylor by the end of that game last week. I think he drew a key pass interference on a very disappointing, I must say, Adoree Jackson this year. Yeah. Tay Banks has been everything as a Giants fan that we've hoped for, and Adoree Jackson's just been him and Daboll, I think, might be the two most disappointing Giants this year. But I digress. I got to go to Austin Eckler in this spot. I think the Chargers got back to their bread and butter. Remember, this is a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore. Herbert's dealing with an injury to his finger, so he's falling weird, and the line hasn't been fully healthy. Eckler hasn't been fully healthy, but I think you saw them kind of get back to what's kind of worked for them in the past, and that's throwing the football to Austin Eckler. He had 100 yards at one point, and then I think he had a 6-yard loss, so he finished with 94. Hope no one took like a 100 yards plus prop over, or had I'm sure people had him in the bonus in DK, and then he lost to 3. But either way, he had a season high 22 touches last week against the Bears. And the good news under Kellen Moore is that Eckler seems to be getting a few more carries. He's comfortable giving Eckler a few more carries than Eckler was getting under previous regimes. Eckler's previous career high in carries was 12.9 per game. That was in 2021. Last year, an even 12 per game. But this year, he's averaging just under 15 carries per game, and he's had at least 14 in every game, in all 4 games he's played. So, he's running the ball, getting some volume there, even though it hasn't always been efficient. And then I do think they throw him the ball a ton in this spot. Really tough matchup going against Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, both ranked top 12 in PFF grades on the perimeter. Keenan Allen should get his, but I think if the Chargers can help it, they're going to feed Eckler and make life easy on Herbert, and not try to really get too cute here facing Zach Wilson on the other side that could end up giving away the game at any moment. Yeah. So I think this is going to be a monster game for Eckler, so I'm fine paying up for him in this captain spot. All right, who do you like for value?
Yeah, so I'm going with the other running back here, Breece Hall. He appears to be closer to 100%. We kind of talked about that going into the season. Like, don't be shocked if he gets off to a slow start. But yeah, they're starting to use him as more of a workhorse back. Last week he did struggle on the ground, which is disappointing against the Giants. But he thrived as a pass catcher. He had that 50-yard touchdown catch and run. This is a great matchup for him, both on the run and the pass game against the Chargers, who allow a ton of big plays. So I can see him having a big game here. And honestly, like, he's definitely worth consideration in the captain slot. He has that sort of upside. That's where he might be rostered a little bit lower than he should be. So I like going with Breece Hall here.
Yeah, Breece is finally starting to really kick it into gear. You could just see some of that explosiveness on a bit more of a consistent basis, and finally separating in terms of the usage from Dalvin Cook, who's been just a zero pretty much for the Jets. As of most of these veteran addition skill players, frankly, whether it's due to injury or just Rodgers not being there and them being former Packers or whatever it is. So I like Breece. I think he's looked great. I am going to go for value. Let's see, who do I want here?
Oh yeah, sorry, I took your guy.
Yeah, well, no, I'm definitely gonna have some lineups where I go Eckler and then Garrett Wilson because I love that combination. But in terms of value, I think I know who I want. But let me just check the number real quick. On this slate, again, it's tough to go with Charger perimeter receivers, especially Palmer would be usually that kind of the go-to guy. It's hard to know on a week-to-week basis which Charger backup running back, whether it's going to be Kelly or Spiller. Usually it's Kelly, but just hasn't been great on the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to exploit this weak Charger pass defense and at the same time get some leverage on some other guys that, are going to be popular, namely Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, and go with Allen Lazard, who has been relatively quiet this year, but, love Garrett Wilson, but he's going to be super popular on this slate. And Lazard had a season high 6 targets last week, and he's been, fairly consistent. He has 3+ catches in 4 of the last 5 games. So, the Jets aren't passing a ton, but this Charger team is one that, they're at least capable of putting some points on the board, or, maybe Wilson reverts to, his past self and start turning it over again. Either way, I do think this could be a game where, a guy like Lazard and the Jets could have to throw a little more than, they did against the Giants and Tommy DeVito, who didn't, they not throw a pass all the second half, and they played the Broncos. And when Lazard played a team with a good offense a few weeks ago, and that was the Kansas City Chiefs, 3 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. His best game of the year from a fantasy perspective. So I think I'm going to kind of hang my head on that and see if I can get some leverage. And you mentioned it, Zach Wilson has been playing better. So, perhaps we get another Lazard game. And we know Lazard is capable of putting up those wide receiver 1 type numbers. Now maybe he's not capable of doing it consistently without Aaron Rodgers, but he's definitely capable of doing it. And that's what you need for a 1-game slate. And I don't think it'll be overly popular, but should be on the field 85-90% of the pass plays.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds gross, but you got to do it on these slates. They need somebody to step up beyond Garrett Wilson. So, yeah, would not be shocked if Lazard ends up heating up, like you said, season high 6 targets last week. So can only go up from here.
Yeah, he's been super quiet. I think, I believe most people had him ranked like inside the top 50 in full season rankings. But obviously no one knew Rodgers would get hurt. But yeah, it's been a quiet year for Mr. Lazard. But where are you going for a dart throw?
I'm going with a rookie here. I'm going with Quentin Johnston. Last week it was kind of brutal. Like, everybody on Twitter was saying, how he's already a bust. I was saying that was absolutely ridiculous. He's a bit of a project. Like, of the 4, I think there was 4 receivers drafted in the first round. He's definitely the least likely to break out as a rookie. He's still raw. He has a ton of upside though. He probably has the most upside from like a physical perspective. But so he was thrust into action just because, Mike Wilson's out for the season. So he was going to struggle mightily off the bat. But, he is starting to show some signs of life. He had a 5-catch for 50-yard game on Sunday night. I think he benefited maybe from Palmer being less than 100%, and, Gerald Everett was out. But he's the type of player where he's only going to get better. So I think he's worth a dart throw here. Again, I think he's going to be inconsistent this year. I think it might take him a couple years to really hit his stride, but I'm not giving up on him. He still has a ton of upside. So, taking swings on him on these single game slates.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this time of year, especially, your Chargers already had their bye. You're going to see a few rookies start their breakout right around this time of year. And there's going to be some guys who have already broken out. There's going to be some guys that you kind of expect, like, Kincaid has been pretty fairly predictable, I would say, and all good so far over these last couple of weeks. But, Johnston, he's going to catch people by surprise, I think, to your point, when he does. Yeah. So, yeah, I think definitely a guy to invest in. All right, for my dart throw, let's see. So really, I want to go with the entire position group here. So kind of going along the lines of want to try to fade Palmer, like Eckler, Allen. We already know what we're doing. You already know what you're getting out of Allen. But with the way the Jets cornerbacks, the quality of their cornerbacks, even he, may have a under expectation game. So, where can I kind of find some value? I think it's, to your point, this Jet passing game with Zach Wilson looking a little better than we've grown accustomed to. So Lazard kind of in the mid range, and then I think the Jets tight ends in this dart throw range. All three of them, I think, have, you could kind of hang your hat on. You could get behind playing them for different reasons. So first of all, this Charger defense is allowing the most schedule adjusted yards per game to the tight end position per FTN at 68.1. And we've seen some monster games by opposing tight ends against the Chargers. Obviously, Kelsey with 12 for 179, but you also saw Cole Kmet the next week go for 10 for 79. So you had in the last two games, the Chargers have given up a double-digit catch game to a tight end. Hawkinson also got 8 catches, which we know Hawkinson's great, but that's still, he's not catching 8 balls every single game. Chig had 4. Even Durham Smythe had 7 targets and 44 yards against the Chargers. So Tyra Conklin is the most obvious play here, and I'm sure he won't be super popular because he hasn't done much in terms of scoring touchdowns, but he does have 3 games with at least 50 yards receiving this year. Week 2, 5 for 50 against the Cowboys. Week 4, 4 for 58 against the Chiefs, and then week 5, 4 for 67 against the Denver Broncos. He's also coming off his first goose egg of the year, so always like to invest in guys, coming off those season low performances, expecting a bounce back. Maybe even sometimes the coaches take note of it and script something for them in the first 15. So Conklin's the obvious one, but I'll also mention Uzoma and Ruckert, because those guys are starting to mix in more with the Jets using heavier personnel a little more over these past few weeks. So CJ Uzoma runs around about 30% of the time. And then Ruckert, the rookie, he's had a 23% route rate or greater in 3 of the last 4 games. And, prior to that, he was getting like 1 route per game, 1 pass snap per game, mostly, used as a blocker and on special teams. So I think, Conklin, Uzoma, and Ruckert, great ways to get leverage on Garrett Wilson, who's going to be so popular because he's rightfully so a target hog. So, if any one of these guys catches a touchdown or Wilson gets banged up or, just normal game script things happen and Wilson doesn't blow up, it's very possible that the Jets are still going to need to complete passes to somebody. And I think all three of these guys against this Charger defense that's giving up high volume games to that position are definitely in play. And a lot of people will look to target the Jets defense with tight ends because their corners are so good. So, whether it's Everett or Parham, I think those guys will both be a lot more popular than Conklin, Uzoma, and Ruckert. So going with 3 dart throws here, but I'm going to have lineups with all combinations of all of those guys, or at least, one probably in a lot of my lineups, because I just think those are the guys that are kind of going to be, give you the highest chance to ownership versus upside to potentially take down GPP. All right, that is gonna do it. Again, great slate of games this week. Be sure to check out the full list of luck rankings, which the top luck matchup this week is also a prime time game. So we'll see about that. But for more great fantasy content from Sean and I, check out our full player projections episode that's out over on the Action Network podcast channel. Our fantasy preview episode is out right here on the Fantasy Flex channel. That's where we break down the main slate, actionnetwork.com, for all of our NFL fantasy and betting content, fantasylabs.com for our DFS tools and models. Don't forget to check out the Discord, link in the description. Sean's on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon, and we're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this shmoney.